Hello and welcome to another episode of the Insight Edit. Today I'm joined with Rob. We're going to have a chat about Breaking Bad, but in the context that content these days, video content especially, is kind of getting worse, isn't it? There's less and less good stuff coming out and more and more bad stuff coming out.
Yeah. I thought we were talking about Breaking Bad, the TV series.
No, not today.
Oh, okay.
We can after this if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe the audience might be more interested in Breaking Bad series and our critique of it. I mean, it's probably about, 7 years old, 10 years old?
Yeah.
Someone's going to post a comment saying, no, it's actually 20 years old.
Yeah.
Today, probably, something like that.
Yeah.
So come on, bad video. We know it damages brands. So where do we start? I guess where we start is, social media and this kind of rush to put out tons and tons of, frankly, bad video. The thing that I see and the thing that kind of, I wouldn't say it worries me, that's probably a bit of an overkill, but I wish brands would just spend a bit more time on doing really great content and just slightly less of it. I think there's sort of that fatigue going on. People just scroll. Whereas if we showed them more great content, they might just stick around a bit longer.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I kind of almost see it as like, it's kind of like a drug, isn't it? Where we're at now, it's people are consuming so much that it's like everyone feels like they constantly need to be putting out things, right, to keep engagement. But actually, I think sometimes the opposite can be true, as you said.
Well, it's that lovely thing that Meta and Google and all the other tech platforms have done is that human dopamine hit. We're all looking for that dopamine hit. Hence the reason why we flick through all the content.
But ultimately, quality always beats quantity.
Yeah.
If you take
quality
a step back,
quality and story.
And when I say quality, I mean every aspect of it. So story, planning, research, figuring out your whys. Why are you doing it? Where are you going to do it?
Yep.
How are you going to do it? If you've nailed all of those things, you're going to come out with something that's of high quality.
Absolutely.
If you don't do those things, you're just going to be turning out crap, quite frankly.
I think a really good example of, a brand, a big brand, let's call them the Golden Arches, put out a film recently, and I'm going to talk about Christmas 2025, depending on when this one goes out. And what happened? It got pulled. McDonald's are saying that it got pulled because it was AI. I don't believe that. I think it got pulled because it was just a bad story.
It didn't feel like it was well thought about in that Christmas is a time that people celebrate and enjoy, but it just didn't feel... Not only did it not feel kind of human because of the AI itself, but there was also the disconnect from it emotionally as well because of what was actually happening in the narrative.
But it also didn't feel like it was on brand. I mean, you think of all the great brand films that they do, the great advertising they do, and a lot of it is about friends, it's about family, it's about sharing, and then that goes out. And that to me is like, I have no clue what the budget was on that. I'm sure it was a huge sum of money. Take a step back and, again, understand your brand, which clearly they do, and I'm sure the agency that did it understand the McDonald's brand. But I think that's just a perfect example of Breaking Bad, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's like, you shouldn't have done that, guys, and that's why you pulled it. For brands of similar size of, the kind of brands that we work with, which aren't as big as McDonald's, a couple of them are actually, really think about not necessarily like spending loads of money on making a great film, whether it's brand, it's social, whatever. It's just taking more time to understand what it is the audience wants and how you want to present your brand.
I mean, you don't need loads of money to make something that's impactful that people can relate to.
Yep.
To bring out your desired emotion from your audience, whether it's to tell a story or to sell a product, it doesn't matter.
I think the big thing as well is, especially some of the social stuff, the social, LinkedIn, wherever you're putting your films, is authenticity. So you talk about it doesn't need necessarily a big budget, but what it does need is authenticity, doesn't it? So, we know that some of the brands that we work with, they will go out and film on an iPhone. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially now when these phones are absolutely incredible what they can do. Well, the technology incredible. It depends on the user and how they use it. But some of that authentic content actually goes down really, really well, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So let's talk about audiences, Brian. So do you think audiences, I guess can they tell and do they care whether it's kind of bad content or good content? I know you're a filmmaker, but do you look at some content and go, well, whatever, but other content that maybe isn't beautifully shot, but for some reason it just attracts you and engages you and stops you from scrolling?
Honestly, for me, it's something that's actually a slower pace and is more emotive. And it's something that I can tell has actually been crafted with like a bit of conviction, a bit of, as you say, authenticity behind it. If I'm going through social media, I can just see so much of this kind of quick, churned out stuff. Some of it, I find a bit entertaining.
Yeah.
I won't lie, but some of
Yeah.
it, I'm just like, what, what is that doing here? Like, what is the purpose in that? And then the stuff that really draws me in though is, as I say, it's the stuff that I personally, and it is an objective thing, but it's stuff that I personally can relate to. And it's stuff that I know I can look at this image and I can say, that person has actually thought about what they're shooting right now. Like, they are treating all of these shots in this film like it is art, because that's what video has sort of become these days. All of these situations where people are breaking bad is because it's no longer becoming, kind of like an art form, a way of telling a story, a way of telling a narrative. It's now just used to churn out just all sorts of nonsense, quite frankly, in a lot of scenarios. And of course, there are some unbelievable content creators out there. I'm not saying there
are some incredible
and there are
content
some
creators.
unbelievable content creators that are shooting 9x16 on phones and they're turning out 10 seconds pieces, and some of them are incredible.
Yeah.
And some of them are actually quite mind-boggling, because I love the ones where I have to think about how something's been edited, because they've just done a fantastic job with graphics or with visual effects or with transitions, the way that they can, change scene and change characters. Those are the ones that really stop me scrolling. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, I a lot of stuff that again, it's how they put a scene together, how they've edited it. I'm very interested in AI. But AI within the context of, how AI is being used in a live action scenario. Right. So you go out and edit something, and then you can use AI transitions to make the transitions look smoother and more interesting. So that really appeals to me. I watch a lot of cycling stuff online.
Of course you do.
Yeah, of course I do. But I'm quite picky about what I watch. And I think the reason for that, and it does go back to my background, our background at NRG Studios, is I like a good story. I like to see a journey rather than just this is how the bike works. This is the tech stuff. I'm not massively interested in that stuff. I'm more interested in kind of those journey type films where someone's taken on a challenge and et cetera, et cetera. There's a particular film I saw which was for a charity about mental health, I think. No, it was about homelessness. It was all done through the eye of a guy who was a photographer, and it was just brilliant. And it was shot by one person, but what made you want to watch it was the story and then how they applied the visuals to that narrative. That was the thing that really got it. So, they could have done it so many different ways, this film, but because they went down the story of the narrative, it was shot on, I don't know, an FX6 or something, but it was just really well edited, very nicely shot. It was clearly run and gun, right? There was no interview in it, but it was thought about. It was really thought through about how that narrative, that story, the kind of essence of the film, if you want to call it that, worked for that brand. The agency or the person that did it, the freelancer.
So would you say when you're looking at a piece of content, the way that you determine if something is of high quality or of low quality purely comes down to the story, the way the narrative is being told?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about calling high quality and low quality, because sometimes in our terms, low quality is like it's been badly shot,
Yes.
or hasn't been used by a great camera, or it hasn't been lit properly. But actually, as long as you think about the narrative and the story and the message that you want to tell, and then on top of that, obviously the visuals of how you're going to tell that story, that's how you attract audiences.
Yeah.
Whether you're a consultancy firm or an FMCG brand or a pharmaceutical brand, it doesn't matter what the brand is or what the sector is. What matters ultimately, again I'll say it, it comes down to storytelling and narrative. Or if you're telling a message, kind of how is that message going to land with the audience?
Yeah. I
think the bottom line with that all this stuff is, what are you trying to tell the audience? What do you want to tell? How do you want the audience to feel?
Yeah.
That classic line, and it's absolutely true. An audience will never remember what you told them, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that to me is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I had a conversation with Harry in one of the previous podcasts, and we were talking a lot about 28 Years Later, because they shot that on a phone, right? So you could arguably say, they shot all of it on a phone, and
they shot the whole film on a phone.
The whole feature-length film about zombies.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm blown away by that, because I've seen it.
You've seen it,
yeah.
And that just goes to show that by no stretch of the imagination is the film low quality, but it goes to show that, as you say, it doesn't matter what kind of quality you're producing something at if you've got the right people making it. Yeah, because a film like that is crafted by filmmakers, and they know what they're doing,
a very good filmmaker,
how they're going to do it. Very good filmmakers, and they can take an iPhone, something that is low quality in comparison to your Alexas and your Reds of the world, but they can go and make something that is an incredible film. So I personally think, in terms of all of that, what I've just said, equipment has got nothing to do with quality.
No, nothing.
And for me, and I think by the sounds of it, the same for you, if you've got the cast, the crew, and the writing and the planning dialed in, that's what makes something high quality.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes there's can be a push to put stuff out very, very quickly without that thought. We just need to do this. Okay, but you want to do that tomorrow. Okay, so why are we doing this?
Yeah,
why are we doing this tomorrow? Because actually, if you have a little bit more planning, you'll get a better quality product in the end. You'll get a better message. You'll get a better performance out of whoever that person might be that you're interviewing. So actually, time, and you said it, it's just give it some time, give it some space, really think about it.
Why do you think that these people want to turn things out quicker they're willing to compromise on quality, and they would rather produce quantity? Why do you think that is?
I think it's pressure. I think there's a lot of pressure out there for brands to keep putting more and more and more there's a lot of noise on all the social platforms, all the business platforms. People are constantly putting films out constantly. Everyone knows that video is more attractive than a static image. Okay, so the more content people put out, the more likely it is that someone will stop and look at it. And I think that's why there's a rush to constantly be putting content out there, rather than going, let's take a step back and just think about the content we're going to put out, and just see if we can go above the noise with something that is, better written, better performed, or interviews, or whatever it might be, to put that message out, to put that story out. Just spend a bit more time rather than this rush to right, we've got to put this out, we've got to put this out, we've got to put this out. And every brand is different. Okay, so some of the FMCG brands we put out, clearly they've got promotions, etc. But even then, that's certainly the people that we work with, they do think about it. There is a process. We are building stuff 2, 3, 4, 5 months in advance.
Yeah.
They're not just chucking loads of stuff out there without thinking about it. So we have sort of touched on this a little bit, but messaging, okay, and narrative, storytelling. Storytelling means so many things. I always think about a lot of the stuff that we do is storytelling, and some of the stuff we do is putting messages out there. What I see sometimes is these sort of muddled messages that go out where they've typically been rushed. Everything's been signed off because there is obviously pressure from the brand internally to get these messages out there. And then what we find is when we get back to the edit and they realise that actually the messaging, it's all become a little bit muddled. Again, if you put that kind of stuff out there, that's going to damage your brand. So, absolutely be clear.
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear before you turn that camera over for the first time. It doesn't matter what kind of production you're doing or what kind of message you're putting out there. Just be super clear that your message is not muddled. And, it is seen by a number of people. Look from an external point of view, we are an external agency. From an external point of view, lean on your agency to go, our brand, what do you think about this? And let them have a look as well, because you might find that actually your brilliant agency that you're working with can come in and say, that's great, but if you perhaps look at it this way, we know your brand, we love your brand, we've been working with you for a long time, this is what we think will work. And I would say 9 times out of 10 it does. So just be careful when you're reinforcing those messages. The audience isn't going to go, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about it already, but in some respects that's what happened to McDonald's.
Yeah.
The audience didn't understand while a brand that is all about, family and togetherness. One of the reasons I think that film didn't work is because the messaging is so muddled, and that's what turned the audience off.
Yeah.
It wasn't the AI.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And all of what you've mentioned comes down to pre-production, doesn't it? It's as you say, being crystal clear. It's the writers liaising with the client. What message do they want? Because I like to kind of think of the message is what you want the audience to take away, and the narrative, the story that you tell, carries that message. So that is what is used almost as an example for that message. This is why pre-production is so important, because DOPs, directors, they're storyboarding, they're working with designers, they're working with the client, and they're figuring out how they want something to look, how they want something to feel. The writer's doing his part as well, of course, liaising. And it's all about communication there and making sure that what you're producing is going to be clear.
So in the summer 25, we had the privilege of making a film about Alzheimer's, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And we knew the message that we wanted to get across.
Yeah. I think it's important to say that us and the agency that we were working with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not like we came up with a message. Yeah. The client came to us with, this is what we want our audience to feel, and this is what we want our audience to do. So we had 2 tasks here. We had to make a story that is going to make our audience feel this way.
Yep.
And we have a call to action, the message, which was, what do we want the audience to do once they've finished watching it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that we nailed crystal clear right from the get-go.
What we wanted to do with that is we wanted the audience to see themselves in those characters, or see a family member in those characters. So we had different age groups within those characters.
Yeah.
And that as part within the mix of the message and the narrative and the emotional aspect of those kind of films was ensuring that where the actors were placed in different rooms around the house, how they came across, the different age groups within those actors, because ultimately what we were saying was we want, as the audience, we're sort of reflecting back at you in the scenes that we're showing, so you can identify with these people because you might be going through it yourself.
And it works from, narrative pieces like that all the way to the other end of the spectrum, like Draper, for example.
Yep.
Right? We're making a product video here, and what's the message? Well, buy this container because it's robust, it looks great, it's strong, it's sturdy. buy this product. Okay,
Yeah, it saves
but
you
we
time and
can't.
improves your output.
Yeah, and we can't. We need to come up with a story around that. We can't just ram it down their throats. We have to craft something that demonstrates that nice and clearly, but in a realistic scenario. So
Yeah.
what do? We hire a construction site. We hire actors. We take this product on a journey to show us its capabilities in all of these different areas and the impacts that it can have on the lives of these workers and how much easier it can make their life,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you've got films about Alzheimer's and films about construction products, completely different, but
The process is the same.
the process is the same. The story carries the message,
Yeah.
and that is how you make a high quality video.
Absolutely. Whether it's like, go back, we said it already, whether you shoot it high quality or not is not the point.
No.
I'll tell you what, Ryan, why don't we talk about the cost of cutting corners in video production, okay? And we have seen this in the past, and we've heard of, frankly, horrific stories from our friends in the production world of where a client has tried to cut corners to save budget. Now, there are all sorts of budgets we can play with when it kind of doesn't really matter the size of the budget, but actually following the production process and not cutting corners, because while cutting corners in the short term will save you money, in the long term you're killing your credibility as a business. You are.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen that umpteen times, with interviews, not just how they're lit, but again, not making it very, very clear at the start of kind of what the message is. It's like, let's just put something out there. Now, sometimes that can work. If you're doing something really authentic, and just putting a message out there, that can work.
Definitely.
But if you are looking to, and I'll say again, we have seen this with brand films, where it's like we want to make a brand film. It's the hero film on the front of our website. We're going to do it, display it at events. It's going to go everywhere. Okay, and then you hear, but we need to cut some corners because we've only got this. And rather than sitting down and going, okay, so you've got X, Y, and Z as an investment. What is the best we can do with that? How can we make a brilliant piece of work and not cut corners? Because the moment you start cutting corners in production, despite what anyone says, that's when things start falling down.
If you want something of high value that is going to push your brand far and is going to make your audience go, wow, you need to invest in it,
Yep.
There will be a return on investment in that, but you will see that because the video helps you sell a product. It helps draw people in. It helps you raise awareness for your cause, whatever the mission of that piece is. This is what you're investing in. So cutting corners, especially time and money, means that you're reducing, I've seen crews been reduced. One that we see a lot, actually, Rob, is instead of going somewhere and filming a beautiful talking head, we'll do it over Riverside.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
And
true.
that is
But
a
what I would say
very common prime example of cutting costs. They want content quick. Riverside is online. We can do it quick. And they want something that can just, it is inexpensive to them.
Yeah, I think what I'd say to that though is that there is a place for all sorts of content.
There is.
So whether that's on, whether it's a quick piece of work on Riverside, whether it's going out, with a full production crew and creating something utterly beautiful, whether it's a content creator, shooting something because they've some trip to Mallorca, a recent mountain biking thing I watched. I think all this stuff has its place, and sometimes clients say, well, we don't want to spend a load of money on that Riverside chat because actually the value of that content to us is pretty low down the pile. Whereas they will then go, but what we want you to do is go, around the world and film this stuff, beautifully shot, et cetera, and spend a bit more time on it. So I do think I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying around sometimes to get really, really good content, and match up the quality. So not on Riverside where the audio is a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
And yes, there are AI tools to make it all sound a bit nicer. But again, it's it's still that thing of like, if you invest in something, and I know I've talked about the EVCOMs already, but when I was judging the EVCOMs in 2025, where the films that were well thought through, I mean, they were beautifully filmed, but that were well thought through, the story was well thought through, they're the films that clearly resonated with the audience, because I saw the data. Okay, so they resonated with the audience, where the films, and there were some films there, which were, the message just was a bit kind of like, what is this actually about, this thing? So I think that I think investment cutting definitely happens, but I think that is sort of indicative of the world that we're living in now, because of the sheer amount of competition that is in the market.
I do just want to go back and just say, yes, there absolutely is a place for all kinds of content, right? Riverside can do a fantastic job, especially when you've got people all over the world and we need to film things quickly. The context that I kind of was thinking was that we've had situations where we are about to go out and film, and then last minute, budget's cut.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're going to do an online recording now.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
we had this opportunity to go out and film some amazing B-roll, some amazing talking heads, pieces to camera to really engage, whether it's a recruitment film or it's talking about a product. And then it just goes like this, doesn't it? The budget drops off, the investment drops off, and also the interest drops off as well. As you say, it's lower down in the pile now, because it's kind of like the people at the top have thought, we're not really kind of on board with that as much anymore. So
So I've always seen the thing that I find really, really interesting about production is, and I've seen this many, many, many times, there is a period of interest. So there's, the client says, I need this, okay, and the client's really excited, and we're really excited. And what happens is, the longer that period, starts moving further and further and further away, the less excited the client is, because it might be internal wranglings, the investment's dropped,
definitely,
everything you're talking about. So I've seen it so many times where that interest period just drops off and off and off and off and off. And obviously, we are like, no, come on, we can do this, just this is the message, that's the message. But I think for us, it's always, even through that period of, excitement to not so excited to, I'm not sure I can really do this now, or, but we are always trying to push that more and more to ensure that, we keep the quality of the message absolutely all the way through, however excited and not so excited the client might be.
Yeah. I do have a question that I was going to ask you, actually.
Go ahead and ask me, Ryan.
Just a bit of fun. So you've got two scenarios, okay?
No, you can't come to my house for Christmas. Oh, sorry, you were saying.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, but I bought the cheese and crackers
already. I've changed the locks, Ryan.
So you've got a 5-man crew with a small budget, but they are being very meticulous with their pre-production, their writing, and then you've got a 100-man crew who are hiring the best cast, the best crew, but they're skimming over the story, right? They're not giving that the attention that it deserves.
Yeah.
When these two different scenarios are done making their film, which one do you think is going to come out with the higher value and be the better film?
Feels like a Christmas cracker type thing. I think that the 5-man crew with the better messaging will absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show, right, that you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the imagination to come up with a story that is going to engage your audience, your video, your film is never going to do what you want it to do.
And here we end the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this episode of The Insight Edit. We hope that you had a great time watching this and that you had something that you can take away from this. If you did, please be sure to give it a like and share it around. If you've got any topics that you want us to dive into in the future, please leave them in the comment section below and we'd love to tackle them in a future episode. But until then, Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.